Aloha. Wanted to do a quick video and kind of round out the Trump selection intention, I guess. What really does the establishment plan to do with this individual? How I see it from this perspective, of course, all kinds of moves could be made. They could leave him in there. They could take him out. They could put somebody else in. They could do all kinds of stuff. But how I'm seeing it in relation for these last few days leading up to today, in looking at how Hollywood was installed into this system as heavy duty as it was, getting Beyonce and Katy Perry and Madonna and Susan Sarandon and Rosario Dawson and all these people that people really believe in Hollywood, all these so-called regular Joes. This is the system itself that is designed to maintain the haves and have-nots perspective. It's designed through the illusion of power. So the government protects the money, the fiat currency system, the maritime admiralty system. It protects the colonial system. Hollywood, the illusion of Hollywood and the illusions within the university system protect the fiat currency system. All these systems protect themselves, just like the politicians protect and work for one team. They work for each other. Just like when Barack Obama was running against Hillary Clinton, he was saying some of the most real shit about her. And now, 8 years later, well, he hires her right after that, after he said she's unfit and all kinds of other things. And then right after he gets selected as president, he hires her as head of the State Department, whatever she was. And then now the same thing's happening with Donald Trump. It just seems more obvious now because Donald Trump is so much more obvious as a divisive human being. And his purpose in being installed into this system, into this particular moment in time, makes sense in reference to the global agenda to me now, even more so, with this whole superpower, the implosion of the dollar, the conspiracy theories, stories, energy, whatever you want to call it, being revealed, this information coming afloat, possible talks of the alien agenda stuff, the secret space program stuff, even flat earth information, all this information being revealed, floating to the surface of ignorance, pretty much, because before any of this information was available, we were held in ignorance in order to be maintained. But in order for the consciousness to expand, the information had to be distributed and released and available to people, because if you don't release the pressure of those enslavement chains, people will break through those chains and will challenge the system as a whole. And this is what the university system is. This is what NASA is. This is what Hollywood is. This is what SpaceX and Tesla and your so-called messenger of peace, Leonardo DiCaprio, talking about being hired to work for the United Nations, talking about climate change, and all this is a global agenda. So my main point for this video, and like I said, I'm going to keep it short, is how the global agenda fits into this storyline with Donald Trump. In order to sell a global agenda, a so-called global agenda, they have to have something that unifies people. Divisiveness actually unifies people, or at least sets the platform or the foundation for a broader unified perspective other than like the happy-go-lucky version. Like people are able to see it more so and can talk about it more when it's in their face in an emotional style. This is why you have all these false flags and all this stuff that really stirs up the emotional body particles into your reality, so that you exist in a fear mentality and just react in a fight or flight. And your reaction is not your reaction. Your reaction is based upon the so-called powers that be that react for you. So since you're kept still in ignorance with the so-called powers that be's mentality and the university mentality, you are only in the know. You're on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know anything in reference to your own the maximum potentials and the maximum available styles of existing in your reality that exists outside of the enslavement program. You don't need to know any of those systems, because if you start to know those systems, it's the same thing like breaking the pressure relief valve of the system. That is that goes counter to the enslavement program. So I don't remember when this trailer came up, which movie it was, but these trailers, like I said, all the movies are one movie. The trailers are part of the movie too. So all these trailers that you watch in the theater that are leading up to the movies are all part of an algorithm that relate to the movie itself. It's all one mind control program. I don't remember, it was a recent one. It might have been Hacksaw Ridge. I saw that one recently too. I think this trailer was on there. But this is how they make your reality real. By so-called based on a true story or some shit like this. They get these stories out there about like the Boston Marathon bomb that supposedly went off and all this stuff happened, and this they probably used Mark Wahlberg to be some save the day superhero in the Boston Marathon. He's just a regular cop that's out there, working the beat, and he's just a Boston cop. And just all this, they make you believe this shit with these same assholes who went out there and told you to vote. It's all one storyline. So my main point is, in reference to Trump and why he's there and what's going on with this system as it expands, the next pressure relief valve that is relative to the civil rights pressure relief valve, because the civil rights was a pressure relief valve that was the same, was needed because slavery was just, people, you had the KKK running around going crazy. You had just segregation. You had the KKK lynching people, burning people, dragging people down the street. You're about 4 decades, what was it, 60? Yeah, 20. Yeah, 4 decades away from the Black Wall Street being bombed. You got people going to war to fight for a country where they're not even considered to be human beings. And the government system at that time is legal. It's okay. Apartheid legal. Slavery was legal not that long ago. All these legal systems. Today it's just what's legal is like your prescription drugs that are killing you. This genetically modified food, this fat and sugar industry that's killing you. Cigarettes, cancer killing you. This low budget version of the human experience that's killing people, these illusions of climate change, and it's really the bigger the stories that get sold to the mainstream populace, the more control that they can hold on to you with, the more they can squeeze. So as you inhale to take another breath, as you're inhaling, the grips that are around your lungs is the system itself. And then when you go in to take another breath, your lungs are that much more contracted and you can't get any more in there. So eventually you will suffocate. So this is why you're having the middle class being sucked out into the lower class, so-called lower class, within this illusion of the fiat currency system. And it's based upon the Greco-Roman tax control grid, including all of the supremacy program, the power structure itself. It's all one storyline. So Trump, being the manifestation of this completely out of balance and divisive world on so many levels, completely based upon destruction, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, completely based upon the separation program itself, the worshiping of the materialistic realm, the worshiping of the elemental universe, and the separation from your spirit essence, your soul essence. Donald Trump represents the vanity, materialistic leader. And in order to sell in the next civil rights time frame sort of unification, desegregation program of today is the global agenda. So you went from black and white to integration in the 60s. Then the distraction was television, microwave TV dinners, Nintendo, Atari, Microsoft 95 and Oregon Trail, all those movies, technology as a whole, MTV. You had the distractions in order to make you believe that the world is something new, something different. I wouldn't be surprised if they start to, like I said in previous videos, this could be the time where they flip it from the global agenda and institute in some kind of flat earth science and try to have this flat earth renaissance in a sense or whatever, because it's part of our reality. And like I said in previous videos, they just gotta science the shit out of whatever they're talking about, and then they can just slap some numbers on some things, just like the globe model was presented to us 500 years ago. They put some fancy paint on some fancy models and said, and get some telescopes and said that the earth and all these planets that you can see through this telescope goes around the sun, and that's how we are a sphere. And everybody was like, oh, congratulations, we did it. We're evolving. Good job. Thank you, university system. And here we are today. So in order to get back on the conscious side, and it's for lack of a better word, of reality, and flip from the fear and destruction, the negative version of intelligence into the so-called positive version of intelligence and expression, they got to sell something real, or at least something believable. And the flat earth realm perspective is a reality in so many ways, but if they sell you that with a half-truth, from a half-truth perspective, then it won't be for the benefit of all. It'll be for the benefit of the masses that, or the few that are profiting from them being able, whatever their intentions are. So there is definitely an intention for a Donald Trump, and it is in direct relation to this global mentality or global agenda, when you realize that he's directly teamed up with Alex Jones in the so-called conspiracy theory. So he's not going to be able to get away from that unless he completely turns his back on that whole energy, which he's going to have to do in some kind of way, because he has to assimilate into the system, which is so far from even talking about any of that stuff. So eventually they'll get pissed off, which will only add to the divisiveness of this racism and separatist mentality, and this sexism mentality, and all these separating thought patterns that have been promoted in the recent years in order to sell a more so-called unified version of reality. We need to come together and fight climate change. We need to come together and fight this military industrial complex. This is how I'm seeing the system itself turning itself into the superhero from the villain. So like I explained about Trump being a bag of shit before the election, and now having to be something better, something in a positive light, which was actually beneficial for the system. If you turn him as the villain into the superhero, you do the same thing for the so-called American dream, or the American persona, which is actually the United States persona, the superpower persona, the expansion of the so-called New World, the expansion of basically the colonial program, the colonial system. So that's basically what I wanted to I don't know if it's close out that Trump perspective or that Trump storyline, but this is how I'm seeing all these pieces being pieced together right now in relation to the intentions of him, because it's just more obvious, because the global agenda is the obvious next agenda for the so-called powers that be, and that can go any kind of way. And in order to bring together, it's easier to bring people together when it's more obvious that they are divided. That's what Trump represents. He represents that old, stale, pre-civil rights time frame mentality that still exists in the mentalities of a great majority of people who were disenfranchised when the first black president came around. So being that I have zero belief or thoughts or whatever you want to label it. I don't think the presidential election is an election at all. They select this dude, whoever it is, man or woman. They are selecting these individuals to maintain a thought process. So he represents this old school thought process to be sold to the new generation. For what? For why? What does he represent? Obviously, he's a piece of shit that is sexist and creates. That's a movie. That's a video. That's a reality TV show. So just like these movies make your kids hate themselves when they watch that Frozen movie, if they're not white, blonde hair, and blue eyes, if they any of these Disney movies with these Disney princesses. So basically everybody is just a Disney princess, and you're watching the movie of politics to believe something in your reality, and then it boom, that's what you vote for, or that's what you choose, or whatever it is. That's what you're choosing as your reality. And they make it real with stupid ass movie like Patriots Day and Mark Wahlberg as a Boston cop, walking the beat on the Boston Marathon. Like, it's just this fucking ridiculous idea taken to so much. It's already it's like microwaving an illusion. It's already a TV dinner. It's already an illusion, and then you radiate it in the microwave and then feed it to people with like putting crystals on it, like having Beyonce serve you up a diamond encrusted, a plastic diamond encrusted TV dinner, a hungry man TV dinner. It's like, oh, that looks great. And then people are all sad. You got a lot of celebrities sad because she wasn't selected or elected. And this is another thing. Like, this is this with this Bernie shit. People who are still believing in Bernie, because this is this whole progressive shit. And I'm glad I remembered this now. So to close this out, as far as Trump goes, the human or global unity is easier to sell to people when the divisiveness and separation and anger and disdain and all this shit is more obvious to people. So that's what Trump represents. So to get out of this old American frame of mind, they have to amplify it so it'll die. So when that is dead and seems old, which is what Trump represents, whether they allow him to stay in there or they take him out, he will represent the old. They have to implode the two-party system. They have to implode all of the old politics. This is why they're talking about the electoral college and all this. They have to implode the superpower system in order to sell in the new version of a superpower system, and they need people emotionally attached to it to buy into it and believe it into reality, believe it into existence. This is what Hillary Clinton and the first woman president represents. This is what Barack Obama and the first black president represents. This is what Bernie Sanders and the whole socialism agenda represents. This is what Donald Trump represents. It's all of these systems all put together to sell in whatever the new system means to be. It's to glorify what looks old in order to sell in something that looks new. It's the same thing that happens with the iPhone 7, knowing that they done already made the iPhone 17, 18, 19, and 20. But in order to make money off your ass, they're going to sell you some technology from 1984. And you'll buy it. Why? Because you believe in the system that tells you it's new. Trump represents the old, and they need to sell in the new. They need to sell in the collective American dream. So they need to take the American dream and make it a global dream, a human dream. And since they've already brought everybody together, or everybody's already connected in this global whatever, this United Nations, Hermione Granger and Leonardo DiCaprio mentality with climate change and global warming, and we need to do this and all this other shit, never looking at all the other storylines that are a part of that system. That mentality is being primed by the people, and you need a catalyst. Trump is a catalyst for the old to bring in something new. Another point to add to this is this so-called aggressive, progressive Bernie Sanders mentality with the so-called alternative news, like TYT. They can't let this shit go. Their very well-being is based upon people like Bernie Sanders and the whole progressive movement and all that shit. That is the washer between the two bolts, the old bolt and the new bolt. It's the washer, it's the buffer between the old and the new to keep people lost in the sauce, stuck in the gaps, and not knowing what to do and believing in the so-called new whatever to tell them what to do. So, a point to prove my point and how there's no difference than from the old and in this buffer zone with like a Bernie Sanders. I just watched the first interview after the election, so-called selection with Bernie Sanders talking to CNN or CNN about the selection, and he says they ask him a question about, what do you think about Hillary Clinton being, should she be pardoned by Barack Obama if she gets brought up on charges by Donald Trump or whatever, or I don't know, whatever it is. Bernie Sanders completely dodged the whole question, and his response was something to the extent of, he made it personal. He took her, he didn't focus on any of the reasons why she would have been brought up on charges, and said, well, it just doesn't make any sense. If you're a president, you can't charge your your running mate or your opponent with a crime just because they ran against you. And that's a total mind control. That's an okie doke. He totally dodged the whole question. He didn't address any of the reasons why she would have been brought up on charges. And he makes her like the victim. He makes her like the thing. And then he makes Trump look like a piece of shit, and make even more so, and makes it personal, and makes the focus on that. All these people, these stadiums packed with people that follow this dude, his mentality, his thought frame, have to realize that that dude is no different. That mentality, this so-called aggressive, progressive, you're aggressive and progressive inside a box. That's what you're progressive inside a box. That's what Bernie represents. You are progressive, a progressive slave. So, and that's how they will get you. That's how Bernie was there for Hillary. Not for the people, for Hillary. Hillary was there to sell in this emotional body implosion so that Donald Trump can be in there in order to set up this implosion of the old system to send in this new system. Whatever that may be and however they sell it in, I don't know. Then you have people like TYT in the so-called aggressive progressive mentality, talking about we're going to get veterans on the side of, we're going to keep moving on, and we're going to look to the future, and we're going to get veterans to go out to Standing Rock and go, fight the system and stand up for your rights and all this other stuff. And then this is all within the box. This is what the system needs. It needs more of this fight the power mentality. And I'm not saying don't protest and don't do all this stuff, because people need to do whatever it is they need to do to understand this reality. Like, I went through my protest phase in a sense to where I had to do that in order to understand what I was really thinking about, what I was really talking about, what I was really so-called fighting for. And those protests, those movements, that energy does make a difference in some kind of way. What I'm saying to people that I speak to and speak with is that it's nothing will be fixed within the same level of consciousness that, obviously, I don't remember who said that quote. You can't fix a system with the same level of consciousness that created the problems to begin with. So all of these so-called aggressive, progressive movements and all this shit, when they're talking about, yeah, we're gonna get some people in the system, and we're gonna have our own, the next election is gonna be a progressive election, and we're not gonna have Democrats and Republicans anymore. We're gonna have a real progressive fight for real progressive movements, and that's what it's gonna be about. And yeah, so you know what I'm saying, in that's where this whole alternative news circuit fits in the Trump agenda and the so-called global agenda and so on and so forth. And some of these people know they really believed in Bernie. They really believed in it, just like people really believe in TYT, just like people really believe in Alex Jones. And some people really believe Donald Trump will make America great again. Boots on the ground from the people have been realizing that this system has never been for the people, ever. This is not a surprise at all. This is business as usual. And like I said in the last 2 videos about Trump, it's only a big deal on the mainstream circuit. You got celebrities crying, making videos and Snapchats and all this shit, because it affects them in some kind of way. They have these followers, and they're being held accountable by their followers to say something about some of this stuff when they weren't held accountable before, because the technology wasn't there and so on and so forth. So now that they actually have to speak their minds about things, People are starting to see more and more how ridiculous the system is as a whole. And it needs to protect itself. So they'll keep making these movies. They'll keep pushing these agendas and this legislation. They'll keep sending Leonardo DiCaprio across the world to go talk about, climate change and so-called global warming. And they'll keep having Hermione Granger go out there and talk about gender equality issues. And they'll keep getting all these celebrities to go talk about whatever it is that they need you to believe in. And that will give them the power to make whatever kind of legislative decisions that will sell in the so-called future for you. Because that's what all this is. This is why things can remain so jacked up over so long, for so many decades. Because all of the politicians, all of these systems in this so-called powers that be system, it only exists in order to sell you the future. They sell you the future, destroy and distract you from the present moment, and completely sell you an artificial history. And when you have all three layers of your experience manipulated by a lie, an illusion, then that's how you can enslave yourself. That's how the sheep are made. So that's basically what I wanted to say in reference to the Trump stuff. And when he puts his cabinet together, you're gonna have people get all pissy about this and that. They're gonna make some mistakes. So like the last few videos I was talking about how they're gonna make him look good in order to make America look good. At the same time, he's going to look like a piece of shit too, and they're going to capitalize off that at the same time. So if they can capitalize off of this move on the positive, they will capitalize on every single layer, including the negative. Like war, like going to war. That's a capitalistic program. This system was built on slavery. The so-called American dream was built on the destruction, the genocide, and the massacres of the Native and Aboriginal American people. The destroying of the history books. The destroying of ancient Egypt or Kemet. The colonization of Africa. The colonization of the entire earth plane. The near extinction of the Aboriginal Australian people. The colonization of the Polynesian people. There isn't a place on this earth plane that hasn't been messed with by the colonial program. It's got a stranglehold on the human resources as a whole. And this Trump agenda is part of the expansion. Just like this, like I mentioned, the civil rights was part of the expansion, the distraction and the expansion of the system under the guise of making the system better. So in order to make you believe that the system can be better, they have to first make the system look like shit. Trump is that turd. So thank you for joining me, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.